Locked on target. We select our targets. It is not a matter left to chance when it comes to identifying those people we choose to ensnare and entangle with. You were picked. There was nothing random about it. Thus, you can be assured that as a consequence of this most deliberate act, you were never at fault. The process of training our sights on certain individuals, and in particular that person we choose as our intimate partner, who almost always forms our primary source of fuel, is one which has a number of key considerations. The methodology of our selection of our target is governed initially by two considerations. 1. What we are, and 2. The role we wish to fill. These two considerations will then cause us to target certain people on the basis that they will be the optimum person for our needs. In terms of what we are, of course, as narcissists, and you will be familiar with the various traits by which we are defined as being that personality type. Not all of those traits are present with every narcissist. Whilst it is worthwhile you being aware of those traits, it is far more important for you to recognize the type of narcissist that you may have been involved with, and perhaps even more importantly, the type or possibly types that may target you in the future. Some of our victims satisfy us whatever type of narcissist we are, whereas others are more suited to a particular type. Thus, certain of our kind will not bother targeting that victim. Narcissists are drawn from three schools, and four cadres. The schools are those of being of a lesser variety, mid-range variety, or a greater variety. The cadres are the victim, the somatic, the cerebral, and the elite narcissists. Narcissists belong to both a school and a cadre, although there is not a category of narcissist for every combination of school and cadre, as some are mutually exclusive. It is necessary for you to understand not only the schools and cadres, but also the relevant combinations. This is for the following reasons. 1. You will understand what to expect from the behavior of the relevant class of narcissist. 2. This will shape the way he or she targets their victims, since different classes look for different traits in their victims. 3. You will learn to recognize those different types, since you understand the classes of narcissists that exist. And 4. You will have a greater understanding of why the narcissist is drawn to you, so you can take the appropriate action. Accordingly, by knowing what we are, this will in turn allow you to understand much about how our targeting of victims operates. The second fundamental part of our methodology concerns your role in your entanglement with us. In terms of that role, the overriding objective, of course, is the provision of fuel. This means that the role is divided into two distinct categories. 1. The primary source of fuel, and 2. Supplementary sources. The primary source of fuel. This is the category that you are most likely to belong to. Those who are in the supplementary sources are less likely to realize that they have been ensnared by our kind, because those in this category of supplementary sources are usually, although not always, kept in the golden period for the purposes of positive fuel and the maintenance of that all-important facade. Those who are in this category of primary source of fuel have the greatest exposure to us, experience the elation of the sustained seduction, which goes beyond anything anyone in the supplementary source category would ever experience. And you also then face the horror of the devaluation, the bewilderment of the discard, and the lure of the hoover. You were chosen because we determined that you would fulfill the role of the primary source especially well, because we ascertained, when we targeted you, that you would provide fuel on a frequent basis, of a high grade, and in copious amounts. This determination is linked to what type of narcissist we are, and there are many of your traits which make you most suitable for the position of primary source with your particular narcissist. The fundamental point to understand is that those chosen for this role must almost always be an intimate partner. There may be occasions when, owing to urgency and a lack of available options, this role might be filled with a family member or a friend, but that is rare. The intimate partner is always preferred in the role of primary source. There are several reasons for this. 1. You spend the most time with us out of all the people we interact with. Therefore, you are best placed to provide us with fuel more frequently than anyone else. 2. You have been chosen because you believe in love and the attraction of being in a relationship. You place great value in those things, and therefore you will give a heightened emotional response. You want to be in a relationship, so you will give more to it. You will work harder to make it work and preserve it. You will be more loving, more appreciative, and more admiring. Similarly, when devaluation occurs, you will experience hurt on a greater level, frustration, upset, and anger, and accordingly your emotional response and thus fuel will be far greater. 3. We will invariably reside with you, either by spending time at your house or our house together a lot of the time or by moving in together. This will enable us to maintain the facade whilst we mete out our less desirable behaviours towards you behind closed doors. This would be much harder if the primary source was a friend or colleague. 4. It is from you that we will look to receive some of the shards and segments of attributes and characteristics that are applied to our construct. 5. We will also require a whole range of ancillary benefits which arise from what you are when you are placed in the role of primary source. For example, somebody who might lend us money, provide a roof over our heads, be our nursemaid, and so on. Accordingly, the person who becomes our primary source is the most important selection of all those that we interact with. You are our chief provider of fuel, and you must give us a whole host of other benefits. We must ensure that we make an excellent choice when we choose the person who is to fulfill the role of primary source. The supplementary sources. This covers both secondary and tertiary sources. The supplementary sources of fuel are all those people who provide us with fuel who fall outside of the primary source. Since the primary source is almost without exception an intimate partner, this means that supplementary sources are anybody else we interact with, other than this intimate partner. This includes family, friends, colleagues, strangers on the internet, and others besides, all of whom are ranked according to the potency of the fuel that they provide to us. We extract fuel from all these different types of relationship. We also acquire shards and segments from them for the purposes of our construct. We apply consideration, although not as much as we do when we target our primary source, to those people who we want to be in these various positions, to ensure that they fulfill their role. This selection applies to nearly all of the people in the relevant categories contained within supplementary sources in the following ways. 1. Their ability to provide us with positive fuel. Occasionally it is negative, but it is almost exclusively positive. 2. Their capacity to provide something else of use. Their willingness to give us money, carry out work on our behalf, leave our lies, propound our greatness to other people. The provision of a place to live when we need a bolt hole during asylum treatment, and so on. 3. Their ability to provide us with some kind of trait or attribute which is required for our construct. These are the 3 things we look for, most of all, when we are targeting individuals to be admitted or remain within the group of supplementary sources. Those are the initial considerations. With those in the higher ranking groups, such as secondary sources, the process is also finessed in order to determine those who will best provide positive fuel, those who will provide some other benefit, and those who will provide us with the best traits for the construct. The forerunners in those categories, which we identify through a number of methods, become those who we admit into those groupings, and form one of our supplementary sources of fuel. These are the overriding considerations when we consider who we will target, and you ought to have regard to them in order to understanding how to protect yourself. We build on these central principles through further refined and focused methods of targeting you in order to choose the perfect victim who will suit our purposes as far as possible. To gain additional and unrivaled understanding and insight into how we target you, which of the traits we look for when we are targeting you, be they empathic, the class traits, or the special traits, you may wish to consider reading the book Sitting Target: How and Why the Narcissist Chose You.